how to teach leverage for kids and for us parents too. What is leverage? Leverage is the ability to use a tool, use a system, use something so that we don't have to work as hard, so that we can make our money grow for us and work for us. And it gives us then more freedom and more time for ourselves. So that's pretty cool, right? But the problem is, how do we teach leverage for kids? Well, first of all, if we don't know how to use leverage in our own lives, financially or otherwise, how do we explain it to children? How do we show them how to leverage their time, but more importantly, how to leverage their money? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Today, I'm going to actually share a couple of stories with you that you can share with your children to teach them how to leverage themselves so that they're earning more money doing less work. That sounds really good, right? And yes, you can use these too. Hi, I'm Amanda Vandergulik from CleverDougHKids.com and welcome back. If you're new here, then welcome. I teach financial literacy for kids, entrepreneurship, and abundance mindset for adults as well. And so if that's something you're interested in, then make sure you do subscribe so that you'll know the minute my next video comes out to help you empower your life with entrepreneurship skills, abundance mindset, and of course, raising those money smart kids. So today we're talking about leverage and how to use leverage in our lives financially so that we can earn more money doing less work. I have 3 examples for you. Okay, so the first one, and this is one, it's a story that I'm going to share with you that you can actually share with your children. So if you wanted to, you can actually have your child listen in right now as we go through this. So there was this guy who was driving down the road and suddenly his car stalled and he couldn't figure out what's wrong with it. It wouldn't restart. He didn't have a cell phone with him. There was no traffic. It was like way out in the boonies. And so he had no way of getting help and knowing where to go. And his only choice was to walk. And so he started walking, but then he ended up at a dead end of the road. And from there, his only choice was to go back miles and miles and miles, or kilometers if you're in Canada. And he knew that he would not have enough time to backtrack before it got dark. So his only choice was to go forward and hope, because he knew that when he was driving, he was supposed to get to this place going forward that would get him easy by sundown. So he thought, well, I have to just walk. So he ended up walking through the forest. And he's walking and he's climbing over boulders and he's pushing through trees and it's really dense and it's getting darker and darker and he's getting really nervous. And then he sees in the distance, he can see that there's a light. And that means that somebody is there and he's really excited because he can finally get some help. So he walks even faster. He starts to run and then he kind of has branches brushing against his arm and then he's tripping over a stone and then boom, he gets to this huge boulder in the middle of the path and it's right between 2 large trees and there's thick brush on either side and he can't go around it. He looks and he looks, he can't go around this boulder. And so his only option is to go over it. The only problem was it wasn't a boulder like this, it was a boulder. It was huge and he couldn't climb over it. He knew, well, he had to go forward. What was he going to do? So he's looking around trying to see how he could leverage himself out of the situation. And he noticed one of the trees had a dead branch on it, but it was really thick, so it was a strong dead branch. And so he decided to lean on the dead branch and to break it loose from the tree. And then he stuck it underneath the boulder and he found another smaller boulder that he placed on the ground next to it. And then he took the big boulder, he had the stick coming out over the smaller boulder, and he was able to push on it and push on it and push on it. And finally, the boulder gave way a little bit, and he was able to wedge the branch under it just that little bit more. So he wedged it down even harder, and then it moved. It rolled just enough out of the way that he could go past it. So he got to go past the boulder. He could continue on his journey. The light got brighter and brighter and bigger and bigger. And then he heard something. He could hear something and it sounded like water. And it was actually getting really loud and rushing and and it sounded like it was boiling and churning and really loud. And as he got further and further along the path, he ended up right in front of this huge river, and it was really wide, and it had these rolling waves and currents. And he thought, okay, I'm going to try to walk out. There was a tree with a branch out, so he held onto the tree and he stepped down into the river and he started to walk across. But whoa, it was way too strong. There was no way he would be able to safely cross the river without being swept away, who knows where, and probably drowning. So that wasn't an option. So he carefully, with the branch, got himself back onto the shore. Now what? It was getting closer and closer to dark. Going back was a crazy idea because it would be hours and hours of trudging backwards, and there was a light right ahead of him. He knew he was so close, but he was so stuck, and he sat down and he started to cry, and he just couldn't. He got to that stage where he was so frustrated and so anxiety ridden and just so scared because he didn't know what was going to happen, and he couldn't see his way around. And then he remembered that boulder and how he'd used leverage to move the boulder. And so he thought, well, what could I use to leverage myself so I can get across the river? What can I use to make that possible? I can't do it on my own, just like I couldn't move the boulder on my own. What can I do? And suddenly he noticed that beyond that tree that he'd held onto to try to cross the river, there was a little slope, and it went up to another tree, a big one. And he decided to climb up the slope and climb up that first couple of branches on the big tree and to look at his situation, to look out. Oh my goodness, just only a couple hundred yards down the way, there was a bridge. And he could see the house. He could see the light that had been coming out of the woods, and it was a house. And the bridge was just a couple hundred meters away. So he scrambled back down and he went back to the riverbed, and he walked along the riverbed until he got to the bridge, held onto the bridge. So close, almost there. I did it, and I would not ever have seen this, he thought to himself, when he was sitting by the river, lost in the fact that the light was there and he couldn't cross. But he held onto that bridge, and he walked across it, and it creaked and it cracked, but he didn't care. He trusted it. He went for it. And then there was the house and the light. A lady came out of the house and greeted him and got him a hot cup of coffee and got him a phone so he could call and get some help for his car. And it all turned out okay. But had he not used leverage, he would still be walking in the dark. So that is a story that you can use to share with your child, to teach them how one way of looking at leverage is to look outside yourself. What can you use to help you get to where you want to go? Whether it's moving a boulder by physically leveraging the item in front of you, or whether it's by leveraging what is in your environment around you, like the tree and climbing the tree. So he didn't use the tree to cross the river, but he used the tree as a way for him to be able to see the whole picture. So leverage is about using tools outside of ourselves to help us then do less work and have more result. All right? So there's no way you could move a huge boulder on your own, but a little bit of leverage and boom, you can do it. Look, I've got this picture here. So here's this girl, and she's just meditating, and she's actually leveraging money to her. So there's a lever right here, a huge bag of gold bars, of coins, of money. It's really heavy. There's no way she could just lift it up. But because she's using leverage, using a pulley system, she can just calmly meditate and pull, and it comes up. That's the concept behind it. So those are two of them. And then the third way that you could get your child to understand leverage is to give them an example that they can use. And so one example that I really love to teach leverage for kids, like honestly, it's probably the best way of how to teach leverage to kids, is to get them to run their own lemonade stand or their own business of some sort. Maybe it's friendship beads, or maybe it's face painting, or whatever it is that your child wants to start their own business with. And to show them that when they set up the business, so let's use the lemonade stand. When they set up the lemonade stand, it takes time and it takes money to get the table, to get the lemonade, to get the cups, to create the signs, to do some posters, to look for the place to actually have the lemonade stand, and then to promote it and get people to come, and then to sit there and to give the lemonade and take the money, and at the end of the day clean it all up again. Then they're doing all of the work themselves. Now they're also earning all of the profit themselves, but they're doing all of the work themselves. So a way that your child could leverage their time would be to hire on a sibling, a younger sibling, or a friend to run the stand, so that all your child is having to do is get it set up, setting up the table, and then setting up the lemonade and having it all ready for them, having their friend or their younger sibling come to actually do the running of the lemonade stand, and then at the end of it to come back, collect the money, share the profits with the person, with the child that had helped them run the lemonade stand. And so what I would suggest is have your child pay 50% of the profits to the child that runs the stand. Now I know there are two questions that often come up when I suggest this, and the first one is, why would I pay somebody else 50% of the profits if I could just sit there and earn it myself? And I'm going to get to why in just a moment. The second question that comes up often is, well, why would my friend want to run my lemonade stand and only earn half of the profits if they could just have their own lemonade stand? And those are two amazing questions, and I'm going to answer both of them for you. So the first one, I want your child to see how they can leverage their time and their money by having someone else run the lemonade stand, because what it does is it opens up the door to allow them to do something else, either some other kind of business venture, or in the lemonade stand example here, just to set up a second lemonade stand that they could run. So they could be earning 100% profit on their own lemonade stand and 50% profit on the lemonade stand that their friend is running or their sibling is running. So that is why it is exciting for your child to want to leverage out their time so that they can be earning more money and leveraging their money too that way. Now for the second question as to why would the friend or the younger sibling want to only earn half of the income when they could be earning all of it if they had their own lemonade stand? Well, setting up a lemonade stand, getting it ready, doing the marketing, getting the posters ready, getting all the material. Maybe they don't have any money to start with and your child has the money to get started having lemonade and getting cups and paper and all those things. And so by setting it up for them, all their child or their friend or their sibling has to do is simply show up, and it is a ready set business. All they have to do is sit, smile, give out lemonade, and collect the money. So that is why it makes it interesting for their friend to want to run the lemonade stand, because they don't have to do the work. Maybe your child also does all the cleanup afterwards, whatever the situation is that your child decides to do. So that answers that question as to why would they want to earn only half, because they only have to do half of the work. And now this is where leverage gets really exciting. Now imagine your child sets up a third stand, okay? So when they had two stands, they were earning 50% from the one stand, 100% from the other. What if they had three stands and they earned 50% from each of them and they didn't have to run any of them? Now they're earning 150% of all the profit that's coming in from all of the lemonade stands, which means now they've leveraged their time. They've leveraged their time by leveraging out the stands to their friends and their siblings. And they become well known as the lemonade stand people. And so people actually go out of their way to start searching for these kids that are running these lemonade stands. So I wanted to share that with you so that you could share this idea with your child and think of what kind of business could your child start, where they could then first start it themselves, feel what that is like, and then start seeing how they could help other kids earn money by joining forces with them. But your child remains the boss. How amazing is that? Now think about this. When they grow up and they leave your protective nest, if they've had the experience of being a boss, first of all, how likely are they going to want to be a boss going forward and start their own entrepreneurial endeavors and their own businesses? Pretty likely. But even if they choose to be an employee for someone else, how respectful, how much appreciation and gratitude will they have for their boss for giving them that opportunity? And because of that, How happy will their boss be to have an employee who actually understands the values of the boss and the values of the business? It is going to work for your child either way, which is amazing. So that's another wonderful side benefit of having your child build their own business. Now we go much deeper into all of this in the Clever Dough Kids Academy, and I'm so excited for you to get a chance to take a look at it. I've left a link in down below for you, so go and check that out. One thing I wanted to share with you is when you're looking for a financial literacy course for kids, there are 3 things I want you to pay attention to. The first thing is make sure whoever is teaching your child financial literacy skills, make sure that they are actually parents so that they have a vested interest in wanting to make sure that your child succeeds, because they are parents themselves, and so they're actually teaching your child as if they were their own children, and that makes a huge difference. The second thing that you need to make sure of is that they're using stories to make the lessons actually stick for life. We as human beings, we learn best by storytelling. Think back to when you were in elementary school. How much of the lessons do you remember? My guess is that you probably don't remember any of it. And if you do remember some of the lessons that you learned, most likely they were interactive, where you actually physically did something. I remember in one class we were learning about how the moon, we only ever see one side of it, and she had us standing in the center of the room, and she had this big light, and we were the moon. Oh no, sorry, we were the earth, and she was the moon with the light. And it was one of those mechanic lights where it's got like the metal on the back so you can't see light coming out the back, but it only comes forward. So she walked around the room, and every time she walked around, she just held it like this as she walked around. And then we got to understand how the moon actually does turn, but we never see it because we are the center of its turning point. And so that's a lesson that I remember because we were physically involved with it. So the lessons need to have a physical element, and through storytelling, we actually feel like we are the main characters. We root for the main characters' successes. We feel really badly when main characters make poor decisions, and we want them to succeed. We empathize. We feel what they're feeling. And because we do that, we actually create an emotional attachment to the lesson, and that sticks in our heads. Have you ever been driving in the car and you had a conversation with somebody, and a song came on that you really loved, you really felt a connection to? The next time that song came on, you suddenly remembered the conversation you had with the person the previous time. It's because our brains connect emotions to situations, and through storytelling we can do that. Plus, it's been the only way that has been absolutely 100% effective throughout our whole entire human history of teaching life lessons going forward is through storytelling. Because really, who likes to be told what to do? Am I right? But when we hear a story, it takes the pressure off, and we get involved and engaged, and then lessons stick for life. So make sure whatever financial literacy course for kids that you're looking for uses storytelling and engagement. So the third thing is to make it fun, to really make sure that it's personalized for your child, that they have a personal vested interest into why they actually want to learn about money, and then that they want to find ways to create their own money. They want to really become smart money masters because they are personally invested. They have specific goals for themselves, and because of that, they really want to do well, and they want to just like share this knowledge with all their friends and family. So make sure that whatever financial literacy course that you're looking at has those 3 elements. Again, it has been such an honor to do this. I am actually going to teach you one more thing. What I'm about to teach you, do not get your child to play this trick on you, okay? I'm actually going to teach your child a trick. Do not get your child to play this trick on you, because you will seriously go bankrupt if your child plays this trick on you, okay? So we'll get to that in just a second, but will you do me a huge favor? If you found today's video helpful, will you please give it a like? It lets the algorithm know that you enjoyed it, and then it will share this video with more families just like yours so that you can help me on my mission to empower 1,000 families around the world with solid financial literacy education. I really appreciate that. Plus, I'd like to know, what is the biggest challenge that you've had when it comes to teaching kids about money? Just leave me a comment below. I always read all of the comments. I reply back myself, and I'd really like to know, what is your biggest challenge with, with teaching leverage, how to leverage for kids? What do you find most challenging about teaching your kids about money? So let me know below. Okay, so now I've got this trick. Are you ready? It's actually a trick that needs a little more information. So I'm gonna head over here to this video next, and I'm gonna share a special trick that your child can use, and it has to do with compounding interest that could literally bankrupt you if they play the trick on you, okay? So with that said, head over here. Your child is going to love this.